So what is Power BI? Well, a few months ago, year ago, a time has just kind of like merged into one big continuous day, really, hasn't it? I did a thing for the digital learning sector looking at Excel and looking at pivot tables. So this is what we built in that one. We built a few different tables within Excel and then combined them together into a pivot table to get information from it. Basically, what Power BI is that on a much bigger scale, allowing you to bring data from multiple sources into one place. So if I go into here and I'll go into Get Data on Power BI Desktop, and then wonder where it's put that. Oh, there we go. It's put up on the screen here. I do apologize if it's small on your screen. Let me just see if I can get my Zoom open for you. Zoom is not wanting to work, but that's fine. So there are many different ways that you can pull data into Power BI to actually start manipulating it. So you've got your Excel workbooks, you have CSVs, we've got JSONs, XMLs, we've got SharePoints, we've got SQL servers, all different things that you might possibly use to pull data in. So you can see this list is massive, all sorts of different things that can get pulled into here that you can then combine together and explore within your Power BI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a couple of CSVs in that I've been working on just to show book use in our libraries, because that's quite a useful thing for most people to know about. Obviously, you could use it for all different sorts of things. And in the process of this, I'm going to show you how you bring something in from Microsoft Teams to it, and then how you get your different things to talk to one another. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to go inside my team where I've got our things saved. So I've got all books here. So that's the first one that I want to get in to this. So I'm going to click the three dots next to it, and I'm going to open in app for us. Now, the reason why you might want to save something in a team instead is when you save your Power BI out amongst other people, you want them to be able to get it too. So this is a CSV file, a comma separated values file. So we can see it's got a load of blank spaces on here because these are all deleted things, and it's got our titles on the top. It's not very useful to us in this way. Ordinarily, you might open this in Excel, change it into a workbook, make it into some form of table in here. But because we're using Power BI, we don't need that. I'm going to click File at the top. I'm going to go to Info, and I'm going to copy the path of this. So by clicking that copy path, it's going to save something to my clipboard that I can then go into Power BI, and I can find the web option. And click Connect. That's going to bring another pop-up for us, and it wants us to put the URL in. So I'm going to paste that URL I've just got, and then if it's got any question marks in it, we're not interested in anything with question marks. So we go from the question mark and we just delete everything at the end there. So we've got the web address of where it's saved on there. I'm going to click OK. And it's going to think about it and say it's invalid. So I'm going to sign in as a different user. And that's just because it wants me to authenticate who I am, because I'm not in work at the moment. And then going to click Connect. It'll think about it and it'll establish that connection for us. And you can see it's identified that there's multiple columns to it, but it's not been able to identify that these ones here are the titles for us. So I'm going to click, instead, you could click load and that'll take it straight into Power BI for you and you'd be able to start working with it there. But actually, I want to transform data. With my Power BIs, I like to get them doing all the work on the back end for me, rather than having to do complicated calculations on the front end for it. Let's do it all on the back end. So I'm going to click transform data, and that's going to open up a thing called Power Query Editor. I'll just make that full screen so we can see it a bit better. There we go. And it's pulled in this CSV for us there. And it's called it what it thinks it's called, which is all books ordered by bibli item number report results. And because this has been saved online, any space that was in that title has become percentage 20. So that's why you've got all these percent 20s in there. So let's first of all rename this to make it easier to understand what it is. And we'll just call it all books. Now, every time that you do something in this side of things, it tells you at the side here what's gone on. So we've got our source. This is where we've got it from. It's then changed some of the types. It's detected what it thinks these columns are. And now I'm going to press this button up here, which is use first row as headers. So that's now put all of these in the top there. And we can actually click on, and let's get rid of anything that's blank. I'll click load more first because there's a lot of blanks on here. And there you go, it's starting from 1,000. So let's get rid of our blank ones. And there we go. All the different books that we've got on our system, their barcodes, whether they're lost, withdrawn, how many times they've been issued, how many times they've been renewed, how many times they've been held. And also a shelving location, which is also in code, which isn't brilliant, but that's the way that our database system processes things. So I don't want NF. NF doesn't mean anything to anyone who isn't looking at it, who hasn't actually set it up. So let's make that make a little bit more sense. So first of all, I'm going to click on here and you can see we've got all these different acronyms on there. I don't want any acronyms. I want to change them all. But instead of going through all of them, I'm just going to show you with a couple. So up the top here, I've got replace values. So I'm going to click that, which will bring this box up. And I'm going to go for NF. I want to replace that with non-fiction. So it makes more sense. Let's click that in there. There we go, non-fiction. Let's see what other ones were in there. BSOA. Well, in our college, BSOA is Blackpool School of Arts. So let's replace BSOA with Blackpool School of Arts. And we could go through and replace them all. I'm not going to do that because I've already done this before, and I know I'll be here doing 25 replacements on this particular bit. But you get the general idea of how it's going on there. So we get a lot of information from here for us, all sorts of different things that we can look at there. And when I click close and apply, that's going to drag this into Power BI for me to then make a visual from. However, I want to add some more information to this. So I want to find out, have we got any lost books in particular? And I want to know which books are lost by which department. So that's something I've already actually done on here before, but I'm going to pull it through again anyway. So obviously within our college, we have reading lists, and our learning resource advisors, our librarians, have been making a note within our library system whether something's on a reading list or not. So I created this list, which was looking at, are there any lost books there, and are they in reading lists? So I'm going to, again, open this one, open it in app, and just wait for it to load up. There we go. And we can see we've got the title, author, course, lost missing, and we've got its hyperlink there as well. So we'll do some magic with this in a moment. So if I go File, I go into our info, and then copy our path, and let's do the same again and drag it into here. So up here, I've got new source. I want to click new source, and that's going to open that big window for us again. You don't always necessarily have to come to this big window. There is a little drop down next to it, and that gives you the most commonly used ones, which are Excel, SQL, analysis services, CSVs, web, OData feed, and blank queries. So let's go for web and paste this in again. It's another CSV, unfortunately, rather than being a table, so I can't show you what a table looks like, but it's effectively exactly the same. It's just CSV has an extra step. Now this time, it's detected that these are the first rows for us, which is really useful. So let's pop that in. And again, it's done this reading lists there. So let's just rename this as reading lists. And what we need to do is make a link between these two different things. So we've got our key there, our biblio number key. And then in here, we don't have the same thing. However, we do have these hyperlink lists, which has that at the end, the biblio number for us. And really usefully, that is separated by a comma for us. So I can split this column now and say, I want to split this up by commas, and that'll separate it out into two separate columns for us. So let's try that now. I'm actually going to duplicate it first because I do want to keep that hyperlink. It's quite useful for us. So I'm just going to click duplicate column, right click and duplicate column. And now we've got hyperlink and we've got hyperlink copy. So I'm just going to rename this for ease at this point and call it biblio number. And now I'm going to click split column. I'm going to split it by delimiter. And that delimiter in this one isn't going to be an equal sign, it's going to be a comma. But it does give you the option to do custom. So you could put comma in space, you could put a particular letter, you could put a particular number, whatever it is that you want to split this column up by to get something else out the other side, you can choose what you put in here to make that split. So I'm going to put comma, and I'm only really interested in the rightmost delimiter in this one. I'm not interested in any commas that go throughout it elsewhere. I just want to get off that number at the end. So I'm going to click OK. And when we scroll across here, we'll see we've now got biblio number .1 and we've got biblio number .2. So let's get rid of this number 1. I'm not interested in that one, so I'm going to remove that column. And I'm going to rename this and get rid of that .2 that's on the end of it. My touchpad's being a bit sensitive today. There we go. Now, we've got another problem in that we've now got these closed brackets on all of these. And when we look at our old books, we don't have closed brackets on these. So we need to get around that. And that's where that replace value comes in again. So I'm going to click on the biblio number. I'm going to click replace values. And I want to find that. And I want to replace it with nothing. I want to get rid of it entirely. So I'm going to click OK. And we'll see it all disappears, and it's actually replaced it with null on the end. So these numbers now match the numbers that we've got in this key list here. So I'm just going to check my phone, see if anybody's put any questions in. Not yet. But this is where it starts to get quite interesting, because now that we've got those links with these key numbers, we can actually pull things in together. So I'm going to go to this option up here, this merge queries option. I'm going to click on there, and I'm going to say that this column, this key column, matches go into reading lists. This biblio number there. So I'm just going to set the privacy to organizational on this one, if I can. Why is it not letting me? Click. There we go. I'll just ignore it at this point. Ordinarily, you'd do it, but because I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes, I'm going to ignore that privacy link at the moment. And we have a variety of different options on here. So we've got this join kind option here. You have left outer, right outer, full outer, inner, anti, left anti, right anti. It seems really confusing, but basically this left outer one basically means keep everything from this table and add in anything that matches from this one. If I was to do right outer, it's keep everything from this one and add in anything that matches from this one. Full outer means keep them all. Doesn't matter whether they're fully matching or not, just keep everything. We've then got inner, which is only keep ones that match. We don't want anything that doesn't match, just keep what matches. And then we've got antis, which are if it exists in this one, get rid of it from that one. And the right one is if it exists in that one, get rid of it from this one. So it lets you do all sorts of funky things with your data to create the table that you want to create right away. But at the moment, I just want to merge these two together. So I'm going to click OK on that. And we've now got a new bit on here from reading lists and our little expansion button there. So I'm going to click that little expansion button. And now I can bring in some of this information if I wanted to. So we've already got the barcodes, but in this thing, we don't appear to have our title and author. So let's keep title and author. I definitely want to keep our course because I want to know if it's on a reading list for a course. And then we do have whether it's lost or not. Now, we already have that within this data, but I'm going to keep it in just for a moment. And we got our hyperlink. We definitely don't need the biblio number on it. We've already got that. That's what's making our link for us. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to click. I'm going to basically just pull everything in from the other table at the moment, but I have the option here. It also lets us decide what do we want to use as a prefix for it. Now, I'm actually not wanting a prefix in this one. Actually, I don't want barcode in there either because we've got the barcodes there as well. So I'm going to click OK. And we can see loads of things are happening on this side. And up the top here, for this expanded reading lists, we've got a bit of code that looks a little bit confusing at first glance. But basically, it's saying merge reading lists. And I want you to pull in title, author, course, lost missing results lib, lost missing results, and hyperlink. So that's our first bit. That's telling it what it wants you to bring in to this table as the merge. And the second bit is telling you what you want to call those columns. So actually, I want to change that one to just be lost lib. And I want to call this one lost on. And then the last one hyperlink. And when I press enter, it's going to change our table for us. So going across, there we go. All sorts of things. Now, obviously, a lot of these are coming up as null. So let's change that around. I want to sort this so it's not got those nulls showing. So I'll try descending first, see if that fixes it. And if not, I'll change it to ascending. Either way, nulls will go to the bottom of one of those. And you can see up here, table sort by title, order, descending. There we go. So that's now brought these in. And we can see it's combined them together for us. So we can see from this, item lost and item lost on is there already. So we don't actually need this lost and lost on information there. So we could remove these rows at this point if we wanted to, or we could go to this expanded reading list bit and let's actually just get rid of those parts from here because we don't need those. Get rid of that. And let's get rid of that. There we go. And that will update our table for us, and those two rows will disappear completely. There we go, they've gone. And they're sorted. So what we've actually done now, from two completely separate tables, we've created one bigger table that has everything in it. The matching was only on two. How did you split off the last two characters from the building number field that you made from the second list? Right. Okay, so on this on the reading list one here, what I've done is I've split this hyperlink one. So it's very, very small, so I apologize for that. But here it's got a hyperlink for me. And it's set up in a way that'll work in Excel this for people. So that's why it's got the equals hyperlink part to it. And then it's got what the hyperlink is, and then what you want it to show in the Excel spreadsheet field, which is that number there. So I did a split column by delimiter, which split off this hyperlink column. So now we've got the bigger part of the hyperlink, and then we've got that number at the end. I've then replaced the value as well to get rid of the comma. And then I've combined this biblionumber field with the key field. Now, the key field is actually, it's a very, very long list. Initially, it did only show two characters on there, but actually this key field is every single book that we've got has its own unique biblionumber, and that's what I've connected by on this. What I could do as well, actually, when I think about this merging of our query here, if I double click it to reopen it, this actually does have the barcode in it as well. So I've got it combining by biblionumber, and if I press Control, I can also combine it by barcode as well, like that. And that'll then make sure that we've got a proper match. But it's not liking that because these have come through as text, whereas in here, this has come through as a number. Now, I'm glad it's done this because this has been causing me no end of grief recently. It always concatenates it down to a short through numbers, then E plus whatever it is. That's not actually working for making these links at this transform data stage. What you need to do, instead of having it as a number, and this really blew my mind when I first figured it out, you need to store it as text. Storing it as text means it doesn't try and shorten it. And it also means the link works. It's very confusing why it does that, but it does. So if I go back to this merge queries now that I've done that, and let's add our barcode as number 2 and add our barcode as number 2, we can then make sure that we're matching exactly what we want to match, where we want to match it. And it's not just going, oh, all of these books are missing. It's going, nope, just these ones are in it. That's it. That's if we wanted to bring that missing result in. As we don't, I'll just go back and undo that. But you can combine by multiple bits of information, which makes life a lot easier for certain things later on. So now that we've got this table, I could pull both of these through into the report to visualize it, but that's going to use up some memory. And we want to make this file as small as we can. Yes, it does. It brings the notation into it. which can be useful, but not when you're actually wanting to use those numbers as identifiers. So you do need to make it into text. Thanks for that one, Jed. So I'm going to turn off enable load on this one. That means that when I click this close and apply, only this all books is going to come through for us. So if I click close and apply now, it's going to do some thinking. It's not going to let me do anything whilst it does that thinking. So obviously this is using CSVs. CSVs are relatively small, but it is bringing it in from Teams. So it'll take a little bit of thinking. A Surface Pro isn't necessarily the best device for doing this on. I use this for analyzing Canvas data portal. Those SQL tables can be absolutely huge, and the combinations that I make can be absolutely huge. So sometimes it can take up to an hour, 2 hours for it to process some of the things that I'm doing if I use my Surface Pro for it. I can't demonstrate those to you, unfortunately, because my access to that is only limited to in the office. And I'm not in the office at the moment, I'm at home, which is also why I'm not sharing my camera at the moment. Because of the way I've joined the meeting through Teams online, I can't change my background, I can't blur it. And I don't want you to see the mess that is all the Christmas presents I've got ready to wrap. So I'll just wait for it to think. Hopefully it'll do it for us quickly. And if not, I will jump to here's one I made earlier, view. We'll let that think along. Because we can't actually access our library catalog system that way, we've contacted them and asked them if we can get through to it, and got no response. So at the moment, we pull it as CSV reports and do it that way for us. So if I open one that we use Koa at the moment, which is a free to use one. So if I do I have it saved on this computer? Probably not. There we go. Let's open up this one. As you can see, it's a slow system, but once you've got it running and once it's working, it is incredibly fast. I wonder if it's because I've got those open like that, it wasn't loading through. Shouldn't have been, but I'll just wait for it to think through. Hopefully it'll bring one through for us. In fact, I can do... Which one can I show? If I come through to the online side of things, I'll discuss this whilst it's loading. So Power BI has a desktop side of it, which is where you build the things. And then it's got a web side of things where you view the stuff that's been built. So I create my reports. I then publish them to this area for us. So this is where all of our Canvas data lives, for people to actually view. You can set this up to automatically update the data and things like that. At the moment, unfortunately, we don't do that, just because we need to get the permissions from higher up, and they've not come through yet. But we can update them on our desktops and then push it through onto here. We then control who has access. Power BI is great, but it is not free. As you can see, this has a diamond next to it. Diamond means that anyone can view what you've created within reason. It gets paid for. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Jed, for sharing that with us. There's a pricing to it. You can pay per user, or you can pay for an organization, that sort of way for people to view that content. And it's fractions of a penny per view, but it does add up over time. If you have a professional license, what's called Power BI Pro, then you can view anything that's shared on here. If you don't, then you do need to have one of these little diamond premium areas for it to work. You can then set up the app and update it and say exactly who it is that you want to access that app. And then you click update when you want it to go live. And that'll give you all sorts of different links that you can use. So if I just jump to my home and I jump to the Canvas footprint page, and let's jump to this one here. So we can see this is our thing for tracking logins of students onto our thing. It's not been updated for a couple of days. In fact, it's not been updated for a week because I've not been in, I've been off, which is why we've got these showing us blank. But it's telling us the number of users we've got, who's logged in within the last month. It would tell us who's logged in within the last week and who's within the last 3 days. And we've created this visual where it's telling us, you know, for each department, what percentage of students have logged in the past 3 days, 7, 30, at least once. And then Canvas also has a thing called participated as well. And that means doing specific things. And we've been able to filter it down by all sorts of different ways. And we're able to click on, and I've set it up to have some more information for us. So we click more information and it drills down and gives you more information. And you can drill down further and further and further and further until you get down to the individual student view of that. And it tells you for each student, what have they done? Where have they been logging in? What courses have they been going on? We're working on making it so it can tell us these students have an exam due this week, and these ones have logged on, and these ones haven't logged on. So because these ones haven't logged on, we need to get a message sent to their tutors, to our learning mentors, to make sure that actually they are getting onto that thing. Because we can actually get it down to this student has actually looked at this page. And if their student hasn't looked at that page, then how do we help them out with that? So this is the end of things. Yes, you can. Yeah, you can limit it. One of the things that we've got in Power BI, has this finally finished processing? Yes, it has. There we go. We've got our modeling side, and you can set up different roles and different security roles. And you can say, based on the username, if the username matches this, then let them see that. If the username doesn't match this, then they can only see this. I've not experimented much with that at the moment because the reports that I've made are for all staff to look at. So we're not precious on what they see. Because it's stuff that they could see just by going into Canvas anyway. They just have to know what they were looking for and digging through. So let's build some visualizations. Let's see what we can do. So here we've now got all of our things from our books, and we've got all sorts of different stuff we can do. We can do bar charts. There's stacked ones and there's clustered ones. Personally, I prefer clustered. I think they're a lot neater, but stacked exists as well. So let's go for our clustered bar chart and click on that. And it's going to ask us, what do we want to have as our axis? What do we want to have as our values? So let's go for course. In fact, no, let's go for shelving location on it as our axis. It'll start thinking about that. Obviously, it's not doing anything yet because it's only got shelving location there. And let's bring in our total issues as our values. And there we go. It gives us our total count of total issues by shelving location. But maybe I don't want to have count. I might want to change it to be a distinct count instead. So the difference that we've got there, count is it just counts all of them. Distinct count means that if there's matching things, it only counts those things once. But you can see this is over the course of forever for us. So it's not necessarily massively useful at this point, but because it's going up to millions for us, but it still gives us something to look at, and it shows us that actually there's some areas that really aren't using it as much as others. So let's bring a filter into this. I don't want to have this non-fiction. That's really pushing the boundaries of it a little bit. So on this shelving location, I want to select all except for non-fiction. And our table instantly starts to change. Now I want to get rid of the HEA one and the LT one. Let's get rid of those, bring it down a bit more, and we can see it's starting to spread out a little bit more for us. I could even say I just want to look at these ones and see what they are. But you're starting to see different things on there. I'm going to change this to select all again and bring them all in, because maybe I want to actually look at it instead and be able to filter by those things. So let's go for a slicer. Here's our slicer. And I don't know, let's say I want to do it by those reading lists, those course reading lists. So let's find out what books have been withdrawn by what course. So let's click course there and let's go for photography 1920. Did any books get taken out? Yes, some did. School of Arts one did. 52 issues were done. Although this is doing a count of total issues. Now, if I just go back into our view of things, because that's not really giving us a brilliant thing at the moment, because I know that this is a number, and I think it's looking at it as text, because it's not allowing me to sum it. So let's come across to our total issues, total reviews, total holds. They are being classed as text. We don't want them to be text, we want them to be numbers. So let's go to our change type part that we've got here. And yes, we can see that they're all text there. So we could change it up here, but because I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what you need to write it as, instead I'm going to click these, highlight them all with Shift and click. And I'm going to change our data type to whole number instead. Now I can also see we've got withdrawn on, we've got damaged on, we've got lost on. Those are going to be dates. So let's make those into dates for us as well, when it thinks about it. Because it's quite a large amount of data. Obviously, we've seen it goes into the millions. It takes a while to think it through. And my computer isn't the best at processing things, unfortunately. But this will give us a more realistic view of it. So that count that we got actually ended up being the individual count of books. So 52 separate books were taken out by them. We don't know how many times those 52 books were taken out. We just know that 52 books were taken out by them. There we go. Let's change that to numbers. And let's just change these on ones to be dates. And I know it's date time, so let's make it date time. Because that's going to give us a load of extra tools to play with in our reports. Now, it's thinking about that. I'm actually going to click close and apply at this point and let it start thinking it through as it applies those changes. Because you don't necessarily need to see it in the transform side of things. You do, however, need to see it in this side of things. So whilst we leave that thinking, I shall jump over to another one where I've built a load of different things for us already. So I'm currently in the process of building this and trying to get all the different data that we have. So obviously we've got our physical book interactions, which is through Koa. We've got digital interactions through EBSCO and through ProQuest, IEEE as well coming there, various different things that we use for it. Started building these reports for us that our staff will actually be able to use properly. So on this one, let's just change that to all. There we go. You've got this little rubber icon. The rubber icon lets you clear whatever selection that you've got on something. And also, if you want to make things slightly larger for you to view, you can minimize things down. One thing I've found is Power BI goes very slow when you're sharing things over Teams with people. So on here, I've taken all of that data that we've got. In fact, on this particular thing, it's going down to individual student levels for us. So I won't delve too deep into here. But instead of having it that you're drilling down through buttons all the time, I've put all the filters on here. So here's our date time, and it lets us look for something within the last however many, and then we get days, weeks, months. So let's put it in the last year, and that's going to change some of the data that we've got on here as it thinks through it, and it puts that filter in. Now, obviously, with it being coronavirus, a lot of these numbers are going to be lower than they ordinarily would be. But we've got different things there. We can then filter by curriculum area. We can filter the books by shelving location, which in theory is where the which department has bought it. So we can then look and say, these curriculum areas are using these books that are bought by this department. And actually, this department have bought these books and haven't used them, whereas this department are using them. So why did they buy those ones? And you get various different things from that. You can see these are actually all those codes that we were looking at before that I've gone and made into legible English. We can filter by whether somebody's a staff member or a student. And we can even filter by item type as well. So what type of loan and what's coming out of that. Obviously, this bit of data disappears whenever you go into that side of things, but it's still quite useful. I've then brought in just raw data from EBSCO, raw data from ProQuest for us to start exploring and doing things with. There's all sorts of different things that we can explore on here. One thing that is immensely useful is if you want to keep like these different subjects here, these are subjects we've not chosen what these subjects are. This is what EBSCO links them as. It's not very useful to us because we don't know what these are actually linking to on our side of things. Our learning resource advisors do, however. So at some point, I'm going to sit down with them and link these together. And to do that, if I go down to this subject 1 here and right click on it, I can create a new group. So just wait for that to think. It will give us a little pop-up in a second, hopefully. Yeah, it's desperately thinking about it. But basically, I can group all agricultural books together as one and call it agricultural. And that'll put all of these under one group combined. I can then put these different years in as historical. So there we go. Now it's decided to think for us. Let me show you what I mean by that. So if I go to here, agricultural, so agri, all the way through to there, and let's group those together. I can now call that agricultural. I can then go through and pull all sorts of different ones together as well. We've got chemistry, we've got biology, we've got all sorts of different things that I can go through, link together, and make groups out of. That then gives me an entirely new column to use. And that's good. That actually just died on me then, because it's struggling to process it that much. Always good when that happens. So let's just bear with it a second. Has it finished loading yet? No, nearly. It's going through all the different rows. Obviously, this is going to count up into the millions before we're through. So let's close that for now. So let's change this from count to sum. This is what I was wanting to show. So when it's a number, you get extra options there. So we've now got sums, averages, minimums, maximums, counts. So it might be, I want to have the average number of issues for each thing. Clicking that then changes it for us. It might be, I want to have the sum of total issues. And those numbers then shoot through the roof. So we've gone from 1 million to 50 million now with our things, obviously rounded up. So you get lots of different things that are there for you to look at, and to analyze data in any way that you want to. And we basically pulled through data from 2 completely separate tables, combined them together. So now I'm able to analyze that data in minuscule detail. So for instance, let's go for computer science 1920. There we go. They took out 20 books over the course of the year. So you can then say, well, why are they only taking 20 books out when we've got, and we can find out how many books do we actually have that are under that location, that are on that reading list. Have those books been taken out? Have they not been taken out? And it starts to build this pattern for you of what books are useful, what ones aren't. Obviously, you can use this with students, with assignment results. Most, if not all, of your learning management systems will have SQL behind it that can actually pull into this. You can pull in things like your student management systems. You could use this to get things talking together that don't ordinarily speak to one another. So at least you're getting a report that's bringing things from multiple locations at once into one place. Just make sure that you've got a high-powered computer to do it, and not just a little Surface Pro. That's the little Surface Pro that could, shall we say.